Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to talk about the command design pattern, and this is actually going to be my last lesson as an undergraduate TA. So,
graduate TA?
no, not going that route. So yeah, this is my last lesson. So let's get into it. So we're going to talk about the command pattern. I think the prof already introduced this in lectures. We'll just do a quick example, and then at the end I can answer any questions you have about the assignment and stuff. Next week I might do an exam review. When is your exam?
Great question.
Yeah, I don't know either. So okay, so it's probably towards the end. So I might do a review session next week. So 21st? 20, okay, so there's plenty of time. Yeah, so I might do a review session next week, and I'll post something about that. So here's a problem we have. This is what motivates the command pattern. So suppose you have you have a program you have a program where you have several different functions, or several different actions, whatever you want to call them. And so, you might have, for example, a text editor that has a save function, like for example, in Visual Studio Code. You might have a save functionality, you have a copy paste functionality, you can delete files, you can search for files, that sort of thing, right? So just based off intuition, what you might want to do is you have a simple action class, and then you add whatever actions you want, right? So you would have an action class that provides you with a save method, a delete method, a search method, and so on. Now, from a maintainability and design perspective, why is that a bad idea? So, why is it a bad idea to just lump all of those different actions or functions together into one class?
Could it get messy? And
yeah.
Something that's not open close.
Exactly. Yeah. So really, the core principle there is, we're violating the single responsibility principle, which is, you don't want to group all those things together. You're going to create coupling, so you want to separate all of those things out. So this is where the command pattern comes in. So there's really four key elements to this pattern. So there's basically first of all, you start by defining a command interface. So that's going to have what's called, usually you have an execute method. So you can imagine you'll have an execute method for a save function, a delete function, a search for file function, and so on. And you have it's generic, it's an interface, so that you can create as many implementations of that as you want. So you can add as many actions as you'd like. Taking that example of the text editor, you can add as many different functionalities you want by implementing that command interface. Then there's the receiver class. So this is typically the class that deals with all of the logic and the code that actually, so when you call the execute method for a particular command instance, the receiver class is typically the class that will have all the logic for that execute method. And then what the invoker class will do, it will basically delegate the execution of the execute method to the receiver class. So basically, you're going to encapsulate all the details for execution in the receiver class. And then the invoker class, it doesn't really know anything about the underlying implementation details. All it does is it knows which object to call and what methods to call, which is the execute method. And then it will delegate the execution by calling the execute method, which will be specified in the receiver class. So that'll be more obvious when we look at the code and at a UML diagram. And then finally, we have a client or an app, which is typically just like a main program or some part of your application that puts everything together. So it'll create a command interface, an instance of it, and then it'll use all of these classes. So any questions so far? See, nobody ever has questions in this class, so I don't know if I'm doing a good job or I'm doing a terrible job. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm flattered. So here's an example of using browser commands. So if you notice on Chrome, what you can do is you can go forward and back, and then the other thing you can do is you can view forward history and back history. So I'll show you that in a second. And basically, it's these arrows. And yeah, if you hold that arrow, you can actually view the history. So, for example, if I go to this website and I can go back and forward. Oh, that's strange. Forward, go back, and view forward history and back history. So this is what the UML will look like. So let me go over this. Basically, we have that command interface, which I'll call BrowserCommand, and then again it has that execute method, and then we have different implementations of that method or that class, the BrowserCommand. So we have the get back history, get forward history, go back, go forward, and all of these will have an execute method, which they'll provide an implementation for. Then we said there was the receiver class, and there was also the invoker class. So in this case, our invoker class will be represented using the browser command executor class. So that just has a simple method called execute method, and that takes an instance of some command. So it can be any of these, and then it will call the execute method. So it will basically delegate the execution of this method provided. Sorry. So let me actually explain this part first. So this is our receiver class, which I mentioned earlier. So this is a class called browser state. What this is going to do is maintain a list of pages, and then it has basically a pointer to the current page. And then you can update that pointer to go back and forth, and you can print the contents to the left and right of the pointer to view the history. And basically that has the underlying implementation or it provides sort of the concrete building blocks for the commands that we're going to use. And then each of these will sort of use these functions to achieve their desired functionality. So you might imagine that get back history, what it'll do is basically, it might call the get current pointer, and then it'll, do a for loop from that pointer up to 0 to print all the pages before. So that's like one implementation, and then all of them will have a unique implementation. And then the invoker class, which is a browser command executor, it will basically take any instance of this because it's, it has a parameter of type iCommand, which can be any of these. And then it will call the execute method, which makes use of the functionality here. And then we'll have a client class, which puts everything together. And yeah, any questions about this? And you notice that there is a aggregation relationship here. So typically what the executor or the invoker, to be more precise, the invoker class would do is it invokes the particular object that you pass it, the execute method, but oftentimes you might want to also maintain history. So another thing that the prof probably mentioned is you might want to undo certain actions. So in a text editor, you can, you can sort of undo what you wrote, right? That's one example. So it will maintain basically a list of actions, and then you can, like sort of backtrack and undo operations. We won't really get into undo for now, just to keep it simple. But that's the reason we have an aggregation relationship, because it can have multiple instances of iBrowserCommand. So let's take a look at the code for this. Okay. So first of all, we had the iCommand interface. Let's just call it command, or it was a browser command. Let's do browsercommand.java. And again, this is just an interface which had a single method called public void execute. Then we had browser command, then we had the invoker class, which is the browser executor. So let's call it browser command executor. Then we had anyone remember the other two classes? Yeah, browser state. Well, there's actually more than two. There was a client, which is the easy one, and then there's a couple other ones. So if you remember the 4 commands that we talked about.
Forward, back, and X3s.
Yeah. So there's go back. So we'll call it go back command. Then there was forward. Then we had the get forward history and get back history. And then basically each of these, what they're going to do is implement. So that's going to be implement the browser. That's going to implement the browser command interface. Let's just copy that and place it in all of them, since they're all just child classes. So we'll do that. Go back and go forward. Okay, so now we have all our classes set up. So first, let's take a look at the browser state. So anyone remember the 3 state or the class members that we had for browser state? Well, I guess just intuitively, it's maintaining a list of pages. So what sort of things are we gonna have?
Pages.
Yeah, so we'll have, and there's one other thing.
Page pointer.
Yeah, it'll have a page pointer. Yeah. So we'll just do, we'll just represent a page as a string, sort of like the URL of the string of the web page. So array list string. Let's call this pages. We'll import this. And then there was a page pointer. And I'll initialize this to -1, and you'll see why in a second. It's -1. Let's also make this private. There's one other thing to mention. So typically, your receiver class won't be like a static class. In this case, it will be a static class because it maintains state. The problem is that each of these classes, they all rely on that state. So you don't want to create a new instance each time. You want to use the same state. So in this specific case, all the methods in this class will be static, but that doesn't have to be the case. So just keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and implement some of the methods. So we had public, and again, I'm going to make all these static. So public int, there was get current page pointer. So let me just pull up diagram. Yeah, get current pointer, and there was get page at. That's just going to return current page pointer. Then we had public, and let me just, we had the public string. We had the get page at, which takes an index. It'll just return the page at that index. So we'll take a look at that in a second. Then we had static. We had forward, which doesn't return anything. Then we had the back method. Let's see, what else do we have? So forward, back, get page at, get current pointer, search for, and get num pages. Get num pages. Is the other one? Search for. Search for. Thank you. So, static. And then this will take a string argument. All right, so anybody want to give me what each of these methods are going to do? Yeah, so we're just going to return pages.get index. Okay, what about forward? Yep. So current page pointer plus plus, and then anybody other than Ahmed want to give an answer for back? Yeah. And I guess another thing just keep in mind is we don't want to actually remove any pages because we want to keep track of all the history. So we only update the pointers. So we wouldn't treat it like a stack where we pop and push. What about this one?
Do we not need the return type?
No, these are void methods.
Is it implied if you don't put it in?
I forgot to put it in, but it's void. Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out. And what about get num pages?
Okay. Return the link to page.
Yeah. So return pages dot size. And then there's search for. This one, what we'll do is we'll just add to the pages dot add URL. And oh, there's actually one other thing you have to do here. Yes. Because you're searching a new page, so your current page is going to change. So pretty straightforward class. And the reason I initialize it to -1 is because initially you're going to do, when you add the first page, you want to point to 0. So that's why we start at -1. Now let's take a look at each of the command or the subclasses of the browser command. Now we're going to provide the implementation of the execute methods. So let's take a look at, let's do the easy ones first. Let's do the go back. So we want to do public void execute. Does anyone know how go back is going to work? And then what we'll do is at the end of this method, we'll just print out what the current page is. But before we do that, what steps do we need to take? BrowserCommand dot You have to use a browser state class. That's a given. So, well, you have to call some like methods in the browser state class. So which methods would those be for go back? Again, if you look at browser state, we had, those are the methods that we have. So if you want to go back and print the page, what methods are going to be used? Yeah, and then you also want to print the current page that you're at. Yeah, get page at. So let's do that. So we're going to do, let's do browser state. And again, this is a static class, so we don't have to instantiate it. So we have browser state dot back. So that's going to update the pointer. And then we actually want that pointer. So we will do int pointer equals browser state dot get page at, or sorry. Oh, there's actually one method that we forgot. So we have to call a get current pointer. Yeah. So we would do get current pointer, and then we can print out. Let's just do currently on, or well, not currently on. We could just do. We'll just print out what the page is. So browser state dot get page at pointer. And anyone know what the forward is going to look like? Yeah. So exact same thing. Instead of back, we'll do forward, and then everything else is the same. Then, so let's go back and forward. Then we have the get back history and then get forward history. So anyone know what these will look like? So let's take a look at our classes again, or the methods that we have in this class. How are we going to achieve get back history and get forward history?
You just look at all the pages to the left or to the right of the array of like the current page.
Okay, so what's going to be the starting point? Like
starting point's wherever page you're at, and then the back history would be everything to the left, and then forward history is everything to the right.
Yeah, so how would you get the current page that you're at? Yeah, get current pointer, and then you're gonna have a loop that goes from that till
0.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's perfect. So let's do back history first. So we're gonna do int, let's just call it index, or let's just call it pointer to be consistent. Browser state dot get current pointer, and then we're gonna do a for loop from I equals pointer -1, because we want to print everything to the left, so we want to start 1 to the left, and then as long as I is greater than or equal to 0, we're going to do I minus minus, and then we'll just print out what that page is. And then how can we get the page? There's another method. Yeah, get page. So browser state dot get page. That would be at I. This is probably one other thing we want to do. Well, not really, but we can add it anyways. We can just do if pointer is less than or equal to 0 already. In the case that we decrement it past 0 or there are no pages, we can just do like no back history to show, and then we'll just return. So what is the forward get forward history going to look like then? So can you say that one more time? You start at where? Yeah. Or you just go up to size, yeah. So that would be eyes. There was a method that gives you the size in the browser state. So it was yeah, get num pages. This would be I is less than browser state dot get num pages.
Did we use browser state?
Yeah, we did browser state to get num pages, and then I is less than size, and now we're going to do I plus plus. Okay, and then we'll do no forward history, or this would be if pointer is greater than or equal to size minus 1. Let me bring that up here. So if we're already at the so this would be greater than size, actually, or yeah, size minus 1. Yeah, if we're already at the end, then there's no forward history to show. So any questions about this? So quick recap, we did go back and go forward, which are really easy. We increment the pointer and we call the corresponding methods that do that for us, which is the back and the forward. There's only one line difference between these two. And then similarly for get forward and back, we're going to get the current pointer, we're going to get the number of pages, and then we're just going to loop, from, in the case of forward history, from the current page plus 1 up till the end. And then for back history, the current page minus 1 up till the start of your list of pages. Yeah. So remember we talked at the beginning, we could just have like an action class and then just lump everything in there. But again, that's not a great idea because of the single responsibility principle. So now let's take a look at how to use all of this. So I think we've done everything. We have our browser, well, we haven't done this class. So let's do this one. So this one is going to be, if you remember, we had the execute command method. So that's public void execute command. And what argument does this take? Anybody remember? A what? Yeah, it'll be a browser command. Yeah. And then what would this method do? Yeah, that's all it does. So we would just do c.execute. And then also mention that sometimes you might want to maintain some state. So you could have like an array list of commands or browser command. Commands. And then you might want to add to that each time. So commands.add, C. Okay, so that's just an additional thing that this class might do. And then you can look at that list and undo certain things, but we won't do that for now. That out. Now let's take a look at the client. So let's go ahead and make a main program. So the first thing we need to do is create some commands. So let's do that. So browser command. Let's do go back command. Equals new go back command. And then we can just copy this and do it for all the different commands that we have. We had the go forward. Go forward command. Then we had the get forward history and get back history. We have all those commands. Then we also need to instantiate the command executor or the invoker class. So browser command executor. Let's just call it invoker or executor equals new browser command executor. There's one other thing. Well, the browser state we don't have to initialize. So now we can actually go ahead and start doing some stuff. So the first thing we need to do is to add some pages to browser state. So what that's going to do is, again, that's a static class. So we can just do browser state. Anyone remember what the method was to add pages? I actually forgot myself. It's search for, yeah. Or yeah, we could have called it add page, whatever. We'll just call it search for. And then you could just do you're searching for Google. So that's the page you want to add. And we can add a bunch of pages. So you could do, maybe then you go to Amazon, and then you go like watch some Netflix, and then you go to Wikipedia, and whatever else you want. A what? Yeah. Yeah, everybody goes to that page. So yeah, we can add some pages, and then now what we can do is browser state dot go back, or is that what it was called? Oh no, this is not how we do it. Now what we would actually do is we would do executor dot. Anyone remember the method? Execute command, yeah. And we're gonna pass the. So if you want to go back, what would we pass? Yeah, we're gonna pass the instance of the go back command. The go back command, and then what is this gonna print out? Yeah, because the last page that we searched for is Wikipedia. So if you go back one page, that's going to be Netflix. If we do that one more time, that should print out Amazon. If you do it another time, that should print out Google. And then if we do forward, then if we then do execute command, go forward command, but what is that going to print?
Amazon.
Yeah, because currently we're at Google. So then if you go forward one page, it'll be Amazon. Then if we print the history, the forward history, get forward history. What is this going to print? Yeah, because the current page we're at is Amazon. So this would print Netflix and Wikipedia. And if we do executor dot, currently we're at Amazon. So if we go forward one page, just copy this actually. So then this would go over to Netflix. And then now if you print the back history, copy that. What is that going to print? That order, Amazon and Google. So let's go ahead and run this. Fingers crossed. Oh, that was better than expected. So let's do Java client. So that's what we see. So the first thing we said, actually, let me add one thing just to make it more clear. So in browser state, when we do search for, what I'll do is just print out that page. Currently on, I'll just print the URL. And then in go back, what we'll do is going back to just to make it easier to read the output. And then in get forward or go forward, we'll do forward to. Okay. So just to make it easier to read that. Now let's run that. And if we take a look at our client, that's exactly what we were expecting. So let's see if I can. Screen is pretty small. Okay. So we start with we searched all those pages. So that's exactly what we see in that order. We see Google, Amazon, Netflix, Wikipedia. So initially we searched for all those pages. Then we went back one page. So we were on Wikipedia. So we went back one page. So we ended up at Netflix. Then we went back two more pages. So then we ended up at Amazon, then Google. Then we did go forward one page. So we ended up back at Amazon. Then we did go forward or print the forward history. So that printed out, look at the terminal. That prints out Netflix and Wikipedia, which is this line, which is what we expected. Then we did go forward one more time. So it says moving forward to Netflix. And then we did a get back history. So if you look at the back history, it should be, yeah, it should be Amazon and Google. Is that right? Amazon, Google. Thanks. Yeah, okay, we went one forward one page, so. Yeah, that's right, yeah, so we ended up seeing Amazon and Google. So any questions?
What does the executor just have one command? What will make separate class for that?
Why does the executor have one command?
Yeah, it just has one command. Why do we have to make it entirely separate?
Well, the idea is that, you don't want to invoke, the execute method directly, because there might be things that change. So for example, like if we got rid of the executor and then we just did go forward command dot execute, that's not, we talked about, I think, stable abstractions earlier. So let's say you change the name of this class or something, or you change the name of that execute method, or you change the parameters. That's something that is volatile. It might change. So the executor is like a stable abstraction, because it's like you're saying that that interface is not going to change. We'll just call it execute command, and then we'll pass whatever. And then if something happens to change in the in the actual implementation, that's not going to propagate to your client app and break it. Yeah. Any other questions?
I was gonna say, should we implement it so that if we go back 2 pages and then go to a new page, we should lose all our forward history?
Well, you could do it that way, but apparently that's not how this works. So like if I go back.
Yeah, but if you go to Google, like if you go to a completely new website, you should lose all forward history.
Oh yeah, that. Well, I think if you open a new tab, then it goes away. Like if I search for.
Or forward.
So if I hold, oh, I see. Interesting. And if I hold the back, so the back history seems to be there, but the forward history is gone. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so you could design it that way too. Any other questions? Well, that's all for this tutorial. So thank you all for coming to my tutorials. This is the last one, so thank you very much. And yeah, I'll stick around to answer any assignment questions, and I'll probably do a review session next week